Raisin Brand is a podcast made for video professionals, marketing managers, top-notch designers, and ambitious minds, helping your business grow one topic at a time.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Raisin Brand podcast. I'm Maria, a marketing intern here this summer at Pixel Labs, and I've been working on the podcast all summer and creating content, so now it's my turn to host. I'd like to start off by welcoming Serenity. She works here at Pixel Labs as the graphic designer, and she actually started here as an intern just like me. Do you just want to tell everyone more about how you got started in graphic design and ended up here at Pixel Labs?
Yeah, so I actually used to be a vet assistant for a while before I decided to pursue graphic design. I always loved art as a kid, but I also loved animals, so that's why I went with vet assistant first. However, I realized that career was not for me, so I went into graphic design, and here I am at Pixel Lab now.
Okay, so today we're going to be going over the 8 different styles of graphic design with Serenity, and we'll just talk about the categories that they can put into and give a little insight on some examples and some of Serenity's favorite types of styles. So first, we'll just be going over visual identity design. This is like the brand's identity, their theme, their logo. So if you just want to give a little more insight into that.
So a visual identity design kind of bounces off of brand identity. So brand identity is like the personality of a brand, which is like what their mission values are or like what their brand is about. Whereas visual identity actually is like the logo, the colors, what makes the brand recognizable. So if you think about it, like there's certain restaurants that we usually recognize right away just by their logo or their colors and things like that, especially like the very popular restaurant, like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but, just simple things like that, so, yeah.
Yeah, I would say visual identity design is what I kind of think of when I think of graphic design. It's just what you think of when you think of a brand's name. So that one's really just popular. So the next one kind of goes along with it, and this is marketing and advertising design. So as a marketing person, I kind of think of this as well as graphic design. This is just the recognizable advertisements you see on TV or on social media that associate with that brand's identity.
And marketing and advertising is kind of the most that I do here at Pixel Lab. For example, one of our clients, I typically design a lot of marketing ads for them. Basically, the idea is you're trying to not exactly sell something, but you are advertising to market something, You want to promote an event, that's an advertising design. Or if you want to sell a product, for sure, that's definitely another form of advertising as well. So,
Yeah, I definitely think that marketing and advertising design is just grabbing people's attention when they're scrolling through their phones. And that's what we do a lot here at Pixel Labs and what I help do for the Raisin Brand podcast, too. So the next is user interface design. This is the third style of graphic design. And this is kind of the design of buttons and menus on websites and apps. If you want to go more into that.
So user interface design is about engaging with the audience. So, like, typically when we are on an app, we have buttons and things that we interact with the most. That's kind of what user interface design is about. It's like, how do we gather that audience's attention and how do we get them to interact with our app the most?
I've been working a little bit on websites, just barely. Not so much creating the buttons, but just trying to make them all work. And it's kind of difficult to figure out where a customer is going to want to click on the button and stay on the website.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, like, where we put the buttons or where we put the scrolling bar at, because we want it to be easy and accessible for our audience while at the same time eye-catching as well. So.
And you don't want it to be in a spot, like, right in the beginning where it's immediately going to take them off of your website page. You want them to stay there.
Yeah.
So it's important to think about what you're doing when you're doing user interface design like that. So the fourth one is publication design, and this is magazines, books, catalogs, and mostly print media. So if you want to talk about that, I know you've done a couple publication designs.
Yes, publication design is one that I wish that I could do more of. It's more so like book design than magazine. I like to do book covers a lot, but I unfortunately don't get a chance to work with that as much. But it's more so like what you see like when you're out at a bookstore or like when you're at a store and you browse the magazine section. That's more so what publication design is about. So yeah.
So the fifth style is packaging design. This is all of the labels and boxes and bags that you see in stores or when something is sent to you. This kind of is the style that mostly involves mock-up creation. If you want to talk about that, I think you've
Yeah,
had
mock-ups
experience.
are especially important when you want to try to do a packaging design, mainly because it helps your client see what it could look like on certain packages. So whether it's like a bottle or a box, you have to think about how that design that you're going with is going to fit on a bottle or a box, because it's going to be very different for each one. And so that's important to think about too. So yeah.
And when I think of packaging design or any of these styles, I feel like the brand's identity, the style of that fits in everything else, because you want their colors and logo to be prominent on their labels and boxes and the mock-ups and product designs, so that when you're in the store you recognize, oh, that's the sauce from that restaurant that I love.
Yeah.
Okay, so the sixth style is motion design, and this is like title sequences, trailers, promotional videos, and like pop-ups and banners on websites. So if you want to talk about motion design a little bit.
Well, I've actually been getting into more of motion graphics as of late, and I've been learning how to do that. Basically, it's kind of like what Maria said. It's more so pop-up or like title sequences, things that move around on a screen. So that can be like whether it's like letters on the screen or a logo that I want to animate. So let's say it's a bird and I want to animate the wings flying. That's like a part of motion graphics. So yeah.
Is motion graphics kind of hard to do? Is it one of the harder
I
ones?
mean, I don't want to say that it's hard, but it's definitely time consuming when you're first getting into it, when you maybe don't know as much about it. But I think it's definitely something that everyone could dabble in, especially if you just want to do the basics. The basics are pretty easy to get into and definitely help form a designer's perspective.
Are there like courses that you take over that?
Yeah, actually, I am taking a course right now that I've been slowly working through over the summer, and it's been pretty helpful so far. So yeah.
So the seventh style of graphic design is going to be environmental, and this confused me at first, I think, when I read about it in one of the style guides, but involves murals, museum exhibitions, and like branding you see on stadiums or public transportation. I never really thought about that as a category of graphic design per se.
Yeah, I don't think I think much of it as a category either, but it is an important one that I think we all kind of like miss or jump over.
Yeah.
Because environmental design, especially like when we're walking down the streets of like Main Street, for example, we see tons of it and without thinking about it. And it's important because, it's not exactly like they're advertising, but they are trying to catch someone's attention for cars or something like that. That's important to read into.
Yeah, something I think about with environmental is like murals. Like if a company paints like a giant mural that doesn't even like say their brand except for like maybe in the corner, like so many pictures get taken in front of that, and like it's just everywhere, and you don't even realize that it's probably a brand or someone's advertising something, or like even, I don't know, you just see it everywhere, and I never really thought about that as a style of graphic design. And so the last style of graphic design is art and illustration. So this is part of motion graphics, as well as video games, comic books, and album art, and even like stickers. So if you want to talk about a little bit, what have you done with that?
Art and illustration to me kind of fits into all types of graphic design, because a lot of times, you don't think about it, but something as simple as drawing glasses or, a little person, like a figure of somebody, can be a part of art and illustration. And I've actually been kind of doing more of this lately at Pixel Lab. It's more so just, either drawing on the iPad or illustrating something in Illustrator. That can be really fun to do. And then you can also see art and illustration on T-shirts or, like clothing accessories that you wear a lot. You don't even think about it as a graphic design form, but it is an important one too.
Yeah,
So.
I didn't really think that art an illustration would be, like a style of graphic design, because sometimes I think that's what graphic design is, like
Yeah.
creating art.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think most of the styles can like fit together. Like the brand's identity will be in every other 7 styles of the graphic design.
Mhm.
So, do you have like a favorite style of graphic design out of these 8 that you love doing?
I would have to say it would be visual identity for sure, because you're kind of like helping the brand get started out in the world, and it's a really important process, and I kind of like being a part of that process, you know, like going through with them, like, okay, what should the logo or your icon be? Is it going to be something that is like, whether it's a wolf or, you know, some type of animal or figure, or is it going to be typography based where it's just text? You know, you have to think about that. And you have to think about the colors as well. Like, what colors do we think will work best? Especially because colors vary depending on what type of business you run.
Yeah.
So whether it's a restaurant or a fashion shop or something like that, you know, you have to think about how those colors play into that as well. And I don't know, I think it's just a fun little thing to do. And even though it is a little bit like complicated at times, I think it's really important for a designer to be a part of. So
Yeah. I know when we were working on Raisin Brand's new logo and colors, it was fun to do, but also very hard to figure out like the perfect font and colors that you want to look at. And we had so many different types of logos that we came up with and went through. So I think that it's fun and difficult at the same time to pick the right one that looks and matches the feel of your brand.
yeah, and I think it's definitely difficult when you're rebranding something, because
Yeah.
with Raisin Brand we were kind of doing a rebrand. So you have to kind of look at the past, like what did well and what didn't do well, and then how you combine that together, and you know, things like that. Because when you're creating a brand, it might be a little bit easier because, you know, you're starting off fresh and, you know, this is something new. But when you're rebranding, you really have to look at what your audience has engaged with in the past and figure out, like, will they like this change, or will it, you know, create them backlash?
Yeah,
or
I think it's
something?
also hard to rebrand because it like stops you from thinking of like more ideas almost, because you
Yeah.
keep looking at that old logo and thinking, how can I make it better or make it kind of similar but not exactly the same. So I think that's kind of what we struggled with, but it ended up being pretty different, I'd say, and
Yeah.
it turned out pretty good. So
Yeah, for sure.
yes. I guess, do you have any tips for anyone wanting to get into graphic design? Any schooling, classes, courses? Just
Well, I'd say if you decide to go to school for graphic design, I would definitely say to have patience, because a lot of the times you're gonna either want to jump right into a project and do all types of things, or you're gonna like want to procrastinate. And patience is key, because when I was doing it, I did not have patience at all. I was always like, I want to do it this way, or like, you know, kind of do it really fast or not think much about it because I already have an idea in mind. But my professors and instructors have told me that, like, you know, it is a process. You're always going to look at it in the future, and you're gonna like want to change it most likely, and it's always like for improving, you know, you're always gonna improve in your graphic design skills. So that's why it's always important to, you know, just take it slow at times, you know.
yeah. Just as a marketing student, I have one graphic design class this fall. So I'm interested to see, as someone who's not very artistic, how quickly or deeply we move into graphic design through these kind of styles, and see what I can do as someone who's not very artistic or creative usually.
Okay.
So I think that's important too. Even if you're not going specifically into graphic design, I think it's going to be fun for me to like see how it's done and like have a little bit of knowledge in case I need to help with something or end up somewhere where I am doing it. So I'll have a good start and base.
Yeah.
I think that's something good too about going to school, even for marketing, or if you're going for video production, it's all intertwined. So it's important to take different classes in these different sections of business.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any other thoughts about styles or graphic design professions?
I guess if anything, I would just say, even if you're not the most artistic person out there, you feel like you don't have the best artistic ability, just have fun with it, like sometimes breaking the rules is key, think outside the box, or just do anything you want to with it, and then eventually you will have something that will always be a part of you. And so
Yeah, and I feel like if you're not that creative, now that we have like AI and stuff, it can help you come up with ideas to like get your base started. And there's so many free programs or like trials that you can start in graphic design, and like watch YouTube videos on how to start in there. So I think that's also pretty cool about today, is that there's so many ways to get ideas and help and figure out how to do it, maybe not necessarily in a school setting.
yeah.
So with that, I think that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us here on the Raisin Brand Podcast, Serenity,
Yeah.
and we'll see you next time.
See you.
Raisin Brand is a podcast made for video professionals, marketing managers, top-notch designers, and ambitious minds, helping your business grow one topic at a time.